As we journey through life, relationships evolve in ways we often don't expect. A love that once felt unshakable can begin to shift, sometimes so gradually that it's almost imperceptible, until one day the distance between two people becomes undeniable. Imagine a wife, after decades of marriage, looking at the man she once adored and feeling something different, something distant. She isn't angry, nor is she bitter. Instead, she feels indifferent. The warmth she used to find in his presence has faded, the excitement she once felt in his company now replaced by quiet resignation. But why does this happen? What causes a woman who once built her world around her husband to withdraw emotionally, to lose that spark, to feel disconnected? This is a reality many couples face, yet few openly discuss. Love rarely disappears overnight. Instead, it erodes slowly. Worn down by years of unmet emotional needs, unspoken frustrations, and moments that were either taken for granted or simply overlooked. What's truly surprising is that the reason behind this emotional shift isn't always what people assume. It's not always about falling out of love. More often, it's about coming to a realization of what love should feel like, what respect should look like, and what emotional fulfillment truly means. As women grow older, they begin to reassess their lives, their happiness, and their relationships. And sometimes they realize they've been giving more than they've received. But this change isn't inevitable, nor is it irreversible. Understanding the deeper reasons behind this emotional shift is the key to rekindling connection before it's too late. Today, we're going to dive into the complex, often unspoken reasons why women, as they age, start feeling differently about their husbands. And more importantly, what can be done to bring back the warmth, love, and companionship that once defined their marriage. Whether you're a husband, a wife, or simply someone curious about the realities of long-term relationships, stay with me until the end. This conversation may forever change the way you view love, aging, and marriage. The emotional labor becomes too heavy. Marriage, at its best, is a partnership, a balance of love, effort, and shared responsibilities. But for many women, that balance quietly shifts over the years, often without them even realizing it at first. They become the emotional anchors of the relationship, the silent caretakers of not just their husbands, but the entire household. They are the ones who remember birthdays, who plan the holidays, who make sure the kids' doctor appointments are scheduled, and who keep track of the small but significant details that make life function smoothly. They manage the unseen labor, the mental load of nurturing, organizing, and holding the family together, and for years they do it willingly, out of love. But as time passes, something changes. The weight of these responsibilities, once carried with devotion, begins to feel suffocating. The exhaustion isn't just physical, it's emotional. A woman starts to notice that while she has been tending to the needs of everyone around her, no one has been tending to hers. She realizes she has spent decades ensuring her husband feels supported, understood, and cared for, yet she cannot recall the last time he asked how she was feeling, not just in passing, but truly. Deeply. And here's the most painful part. Most men don't even realize it's happening. Not because they are cruel or uncaring, but because they have never had to carry this kind of emotional burden. They exist within the marriage, comfortable in the stability their wives have built, unaware of the slow erosion happening beneath the surface. Women, on the other hand, start to feel like they are holding up the entire relationship on their own. Resentment creeps in. Slowly at first, then all at once. What once felt like love now feels like obligation. What once felt like partnership now feels like duty. And one day she wakes up and realizes she's tired of carrying it all alone. A lack of meaningful communication. In the early years of marriage, the conversations flow effortlessly, filled with excitement and curiosity. There's an eagerness to truly understand each other. How was your day? What are you thinking about? Tell me about your dreams. Every word exchanged feels like an opportunity to connect, to build a deeper bond, to explore the intricacies of each other's minds and hearts. These small, seemingly insignificant moments of communication weave the fabric of a strong, loving relationship. But as time goes on, something shifts. The spontaneous conversations that once brought them closer start to dwindle. The once lively exchanges are replaced by routine questions. How was work? Or what's for dinner? And eventually, the dialogue between husband and wife becomes predictable, almost mechanical. The conversations fade, and what once felt like a vibrant connection turns into a quiet, distant silence. Worse still, in many marriages, the communication vanishes altogether, leaving a void where intimacy once thrived. For women, this lack of meaningful conversation is not just frustrating, it's heartbreaking. A woman craves emotional intimacy just as much as she craves companionship. She yearns for the kind of connection that goes beyond surface-level exchanges. Without those deep, heartfelt discussions, she begins to feel unseen, unheard, and unappreciated. The emotional bond that once seemed unbreakable starts to feel fragile, as if the distance between them is widening with each passing day. She wonders if he truly knows her anymore, if he remembers what makes her smile, what keeps her up at night, or what she dreams about for the future. Without this connection, the foundation of the marriage begins to crack. The burden of housework never ends. In many long-term marriages, one of the most persistent and overlooked sources of frustration for women is the never-ending burden of housework. Though the world has changed in many ways, one thing remains constant: the disproportionate share of household chores that women continue to carry even well into their later years. Studies reveal a sobering truth. Despite all the strides women have made in the workforce and in society, they are still expected to shoulder the majority of domestic responsibilities even after retirement. At first, it seems manageable. A few dishes were left in the sink, a shirt forgotten on the floor. These small annoyances are easy to overlook, brushed aside in the daily hustle of life. But over time, the accumulation of these overlooked tasks begins to wear on her. As the years go by, what once seemed like minor inconveniences start to feel like an unrelenting weight. And then, by the time she reaches her senior years, that weight has become unbearable. The emotional fatigue of constantly managing every corner of the household, cooking, cleaning, organizing, begins to take its toll. The resentment builds slowly, like a quiet storm. She starts to wonder, why am I the one who has to do everything? Why am I the one who always picks up the slack day after day, year after year? She looks around and sees her husband, who has long since become accustomed to this dynamic, blissfully unaware of the quiet burden she carries. Each task feels like another brick added to an invisible wall between them, leaving her feeling alone in her efforts. What once felt like a shared responsibility has, over time, turned into an exhausting cycle of work with little recognition or support. And for many women, this becomes the tipping point, the moment when they realize they can no longer continue to bear this load alone. She outgrows the relationship, but he doesn't. As women grow older, many experience a profound desire for personal growth. After decades of nurturing others, they begin to prioritize their own development. They want to travel, explore new passions, learn new skills, and engage with the world in ways they might have put aside during the busy years of raising children or managing a household. The world suddenly feels full of possibilities, and they are eager to embrace them. But what happens when their husband doesn't share this same drive for growth? What happens when, despite the changing tides in her own life, he remains unchanged, comfortable in his routines, his habits, and his familiar ways? Over time, the gap between them grows wider. She seeks new experiences, but he resists change, unwilling or unable to evolve with her. He may remain rooted in the past, reluctant to step out of his comfort zone or try new things. For the woman, this stagnation becomes more than just frustrating. It becomes suffocating. She begins to feel like she is outgrowing the relationship itself. The partnership that once felt dynamic and full of promise now feels stunted and limiting. She longs for a companion who is willing to grow alongside her, someone who can share in her excitement about the future and meet her in the places where she's evolving. But instead, she's left carrying the weight of change alone while her husband stays in place. This emotional dissonance creates a painful disconnect. The woman feels as though she's evolving into someone new, someone more alive and expansive, while her partner remains frozen in time. The emotional gap between them widens, and with it, the sense that they are no longer truly partners, but merely coexisting. And as this gap grows, so does the loneliness, a quiet ache that often goes unspoken, but is felt deeply. A loss of physical and emotional intimacy. Intimacy is often thought of in physical terms: the touch, the closeness, the act of being physically present with someone. But true intimacy goes much deeper. It's about emotional connection, about feeling seen, understood, and desired. It's the moments when a glance speaks volumes, when words aren't needed to convey affection. It's the feeling that your partner still looks at you the way they did when you first fell in love, that they still see you as someone they cherish and admire. But over time, many couples begin to lose this spark. The once vibrant connection that sparked both emotional and physical closeness fades into the background. For many women, this loss of intimacy can feel like the death of something vital in their marriage. When the kisses become fewer, the touch more distant, and the moments of true connection more rare, she begins to question, does he still desire me? Does he still see me the way he once did? When this desire fades, so too does the emotional bond. It's not just the absence of physical closeness that causes pain, it's the emotional detachment that follows. A woman who once felt cherished and adored begins to feel invisible, as if the person who once saw her so clearly no longer notices the essence of who she is. The intimacy that once bound them together, both physically and emotionally, begins to unravel, leaving a profound emptiness in its wake. The loss of intimacy is a silent killer of love. As the emotional distance grows, the physical connection withers. She starts to pull away, not because she wants to, but because the void between them feels too wide to cross. Without that closeness, without that feeling of being desired and valued, she begins to emotionally detach. And as the distance grows, so does the ache of loneliness. Silent, but all-encompassing. Retirement changes everything, but not always for the better. Retirement is often touted as the golden chapter of life, a well-earned break, a time to relax, explore new passions, and most importantly, enjoy each other's company after years of hard work. But for many couples, this phase of life isn't as idyllic as it's made out to be. In fact, it can quickly become a source of tension and frustration, especially when the shift from a structured, busy life to endless free time creates unforeseen challenges. The root of the problem often lies in the way many men approach retirement. Unlike women, who may have spent years balancing multiple roles and responsibilities, many men enter this phase without a clear plan for how they'll fill their days. They go from working full-time with a clear sense of purpose and direction to suddenly finding themselves with an abundance of time and nowhere to direct it. And here's where things often go awry. In many marriages, the wife is expected to become the husband's entertainment committee, his constant companion, caretaker, and source of amusement. This shift can feel overwhelming, especially for women who have spent decades managing the demands of family, work, and household responsibilities. Now, instead of having the freedom she expected in retirement, time to travel, pursue hobbies, and explore new interests, she finds herself tethered to her husband's side, constantly tending to his needs. He expects her to fill the hours he doesn't know how to spend, to keep him entertained, to be his constant support. What was meant to be a peaceful chapter now feels suffocating. Without the balance of separate hobbies, friendships, or interests, the woman begins to feel trapped. She finds herself questioning how she ended up in this place, feeling as though she has lost the freedom she was looking forward to. She's not only taking on the emotional labor of maintaining the relationship, but also now has the responsibility of managing her husband's boredom and restlessness. The resentment builds quietly but steadily. Resentment for the freedom she never gained and for the constant demands on her time and energy. This sense of being trapped and overwhelmed can erode the love she once had for her husband. The resentment, though unspoken, takes root, silently chipping away at the foundation of their relationship. The retirement years, instead of being a time of renewal and relaxation, become a period of quiet frustration and longing for the life she had imagined for herself. She no longer feels heard or appreciated. One of the most painful experiences in a marriage isn't necessarily the arguments or the occasional disagreements. It's the feeling of invisibility. For many women, after years of being the emotional backbone of the family, providing unwavering support, guidance, and care, they reach a breaking point where they no longer feel seen or heard. The conversations that once made them feel connected and valued become nothing more than echoes, their words drifting off into the silence of indifference. They try to express their concerns, share their emotions, and engage in meaningful dialogues with their husbands. But over time, these efforts seem to fall on deaf ears. It's not that the husband is intentionally dismissing her, it's more that he's no longer actively listening, no longer tuning into her needs and feelings. What once was a mutual exchange of thoughts and desires turns into a routine, a mere check-in that leaves her feeling like her voice doesn't matter. A wife doesn't need grand gestures of affection to feel loved, she needs to feel heard. She needs to know that her thoughts, opinions, and emotions still matter to the person she spent decades of her life with. When this listening ear and emotional connection begin to fade, she starts to emotionally withdraw, retreating into herself as a protective mechanism. What was once a vibrant, communicative relationship becomes a quiet, lonely space. And once she starts pulling away, it becomes incredibly difficult to find her way back. If a woman feels ignored long enough, she stops trying. The emotional effort of reaching out, of seeking connection, fades. When this happens, love gradually transforms into quiet resentment, a slow burn that simmers beneath the surface. What once was a warm, supportive partnership becomes a cold, distant relationship where both are simply going through the motions, but neither truly feels connected. She realizes life is short and she wants more. As we age, time begins to feel different. We experience the loss of friends, we attend more funerals, and we are faced with the undeniable truth that life is finite. The days that once seemed endless start to feel precious, and we begin to see the world and our place in it through a different lens. For many women, this realization sparks an internal reckoning. They start asking themselves the hard questions. Am I happy? Do I feel loved? Is this how I want to spend the rest of my years? These questions often come with no easy answers. And when the answers don't align with the life they imagined, they begin to see their marriage in a new light. It's not about anger or resentment, it's about self-preservation. After decades of giving and caring, many women reach a stage where they no longer want to fight for attention, beg for affection, or constantly try to revive what once was. Instead, they shift their focus to their own well-being. They begin to prioritize themselves, emotionally, physically, and mentally. If their husband doesn't meet them halfway, if he doesn't understand the depth of what's changing, they may quietly withdraw. This detachment can be both emotional and at times physical. It's not that they've stopped loving, they've just realized that they deserve more than to simply exist in someone else's life, that they deserve a love that is shared, nurtured, and reciprocated. At this stage of life, relationships aren't about grand romantic gestures or elaborate displays of affection. They are about presence, understanding, and respect. And when a woman starts to feel distant from her husband, it's rarely because she has fallen out of love. More often, it's because she no longer feels seen, valued, or appreciated in the way she needs to. This is the story of many marriages. Love doesn't vanish in one dramatic moment. It fades in the small, unnoticed moments. The times she feels unheard, the years she carried emotional burdens alone, the moments when she seeks support but finds silence instead. These subtle shifts build up over time until one day she realizes that the spark of intimacy, connection, and partnership has flickered out. But does it have to be this way? Number love is a choice. Just as it fades through neglect, it can also be reignited through effort and care. So, if you're a husband watching this, ask yourself, when was the last time you truly listened to your wife? When was the last time you showed her appreciation, not just as your partner, but as the person she is? And if you're a wife feeling disconnected, ask yourself, is there still room for rebuilding that connection? Marriage is not about reaching a destination. It's about continuously choosing each other, even as time and circumstances change. It's about making the small, thoughtful efforts that communicate, I still see you, I still value you, you still matter to me. If there's one thing you take away from this, let it be this. Love doesn't fade with age. It fades when we stop nurturing it. If you want to keep your relationship alive in your later years, it's never too late to start. Choose love, choose understanding, and most importantly, choose each other. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care of yourself and your relationships. They are life's greatest treasures.